Beginning, the outsider among warriors. The twin suns of Athex Prime burned low against the fractured horizon, casting long red shadows across the military outpost known as Fort Helene. Dust swirled in the wind like sparks from a dying flame. I stood alone in the training yard, the hum of alien machinery echoing through the steel platforms above me. Around me, the Valari, a warrior race feared across the stars, trained with precision and elegance that bordered on poetry. I was the only human among them. They called me Captain Rian Cross, Earth's representative, in a peacekeeping exchange between our species. But I could tell from the moment I arrived, they didn't want me here. Especially Commander Sirexa Karan, the alien woman who led the entire garrison. Sirexa was unlike any being I'd ever encountered, tall, silver-skinned, and carrying herself with the grace of a queen. Her violet eyes glowed faintly in the dark, always cold, always calculating. When she looked at me, it wasn't admiration I saw, it was doubt. "You are fragile," she said during our first encounter, her voice like smooth metal. "Humans are curious creatures. But this is a war front, not a curiosity exhibit." "I didn't come here to watch," I told her, matching her stare. "I came here to fight." That earned me a smirk. "Then fight," she said, tossing me a practice spear. What followed was 3 days of humiliation. Every sparring match, every exercise, every mission simulation, I was slower, weaker, less efficient by their standards. The Valari fought like living machines, their movements guided by centuries of discipline and neural enhancements. I relied on instinct and training that seemed primitive by comparison. The others whispered, "The human won't last a week." Sirexa didn't whisper. She said it to my face. "You don't belong in a war of gods, Captain Cross. Go home before one of my soldiers has to carry your body off the field." But I didn't leave. Because somewhere deep down I knew something they didn't. Sometimes machines forget how to improvise. Humans don't. The test of fire. 2 weeks later, the alarm sirens screamed across Fort Helene. A transmission flashed across the comm grid. The Vornak Horde had breached the planetary shield perimeter. The Valari's ancient enemies, feral, insectoid creatures bred for destruction, had attacked earlier than expected. Within minutes, the outpost was chaos. Sirexa was already on the front line when I caught up to her. Her armor shimmered like obsidian, her energy blade humming in her hand. "This is not your fight, human," she shouted as she activated her mask. "Fall back to the defense line." "With all due respect, Commander," I said, locking my rifle into place. "You're going to need me." Her glare could have melted steel, but she didn't argue. There was no time. The first wave of Vornak swarmed over the dunes, black chitin and razor limbs gleaming in the light of the dying suns. Plasma fire lit the sky. The Valari moved like one organism, their coordination flawless, but the Horde's numbers were endless. We fought side by side, back to back. I fired burst after burst into the approaching swarm, reloading between her elegant slashes. Each movement she made was calculated, graceful, until a Vornak breached the flank. "Left!" shouted. She turned too late. The creature's talons sliced across her armor, tearing through the plating. Sirexa staggered, blood like silver mercury spilling from the wound. Without thinking, I lunged forward, grabbing the fallen plasma grenade from her belt. I pulled the pin and shoved it deep into the creature's chest. It shrieked once before vanishing in a burst of light and flame. The blast threw us both backward. Dust filled the air, and for a moment, all I could hear was the crackle of distant fire. Sirexa coughed, her breathing shallow. I tore off part of my own armor plating and pressed it against her wound to slow the bleeding. "You're hurt," I said, voice trembling. Her eyes fluttered open, glaring at me even through pain. You disobeyed my command. Yeah, I said, grinning faintly. You're welcome. Something flickered in her eyes then, something that wasn't contempt. The Valari reinforcements arrived minutes later, driving the Vornak back beyond the ridge. The battlefield was silent except for the whine of cooling weapons. As medics rushed to help her, Sirexa caught my wrist. Her fingers were cold, trembling, but her grip was unyielding. Don't let them take me to the infirmary, she whispered. Why? I asked. Because the Queen will see this as weakness. And weakness in Valari command is a death sentence. I hesitated, then nodded. Then you're not going anywhere. I helped her to her feet, draping her arm over my shoulder. Together, we limped toward the shadows of the outpost. For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't protest. Middle part 2. The secret beneath the armor. I hid her in the maintenance bay, deep below the main hangar where the engineers worked on damaged gunships. The med drones obeyed me without question after I encrypted her data logs to show she was off duty for command review. She was half-conscious for hours, murmuring in her native tongue. I could only catch fragments, words that sounded like honor, failure, and once my name. When she finally woke, I was sitting beside her, cleaning my rifle. You saved me, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, well, I replied. You'd have done the same. Her expression darkened. No, I wouldn't have. Valari law forbids risking one's life for another's weakness. Then maybe your law's broken, I said, standing. Because where I come from, we don't leave people behind. She looked at me for a long moment, long enough for the faintest trace of a smile to appear. You're a strange creature, human. I've heard that before, I said. Days passed as she recovered, though she never told anyone the truth. In the meantime, the Command Council demanded reports. The Horde's activity was increasing, and the Queen herself was due to arrive for inspection. When Sirexa finally walked again, she met me in the hangar at dawn. She was back in full armor, her posture perfect, but her voice had changed. I owe you my life, she said quietly. But if anyone finds out, they'll question my leadership. I don't care about your politics, I replied. I care about keeping this outpost alive. Her eyes met mine, violet and fierce. Then fight with me. Not as a token human, not as an observer. Fight as my equal. It was the first time she'd ever said those words. And the last time I'd hear her speak them without pain. Ending the fall of Fort Helene. 3 nights later the Horde returned, this time in full force. The Queen's fleet was still hours away. We were outnumbered 10-1. Helion's going to fall, one of the Valari captains said grimly. Not while we're breathing, Sirexa replied, her voice hard as stone. She turned to me. Captain Cross, you have command of the west flank. And blinked. That's suicide. Her lips curved slightly. Then you'll fit right in. The battle raged for hours. The Horde's assault cannons tore through the outer walls. Plasma fire lit the sky like an inferno. My men, humans and Valari alike, fought until their weapons overheated, using whatever we could to hold the line. When the barricades fell, I thought it was over. Then Sirexa appeared, cutting through the Horde with impossible speed. Her blade glowed white-hot, every strike a blur of precision. She moved like fury given form,